Hello and welcome to Drawdown Toronto's Just Eat It Food Waste Challenge. My name is Erin Andrews. I am the Executive Director at Impact Zero, and we have partnered with Drawdown Toronto to deliver these 6 weeks of interviews with industry experts to teach everybody about food waste. So this week's theme is lessons in leftovers, and to help provide some more information about leftovers, we have Dayna with us, who is the owner of Bear Market, Monique, who is the owner of Bruized, and Sophi, who is the customer engagement lead at Spent Goods. First, maybe Dayna, do you want to give us an overview about what Bear Market does?
Sure, yeah. So Bear Market is a one-stop shop for package-free goods. We're on a mission to help both our suppliers and our customers reduce waste in their life and in their supply chains if they're one of the businesses we get our products from. So we sell body care, home care, DIY ingredients, and food in bulk. And all along the way, we're trying to help people reduce waste.
Awesome, thanks. And Monique, do you mind giving us an overview of what you guys do at Bruised?
Yeah, sure. So Bruised is a women-run Toronto-based startup that is helping to bring awareness surrounding the issue of food waste. So we take imperfect second-grade produce that would have normally not made it to markets or even byproducts in manufacturing, and we transform that into healthy plant-based eats that are familiar to people and help to educate people on this issue while providing healthier options in the market.
Awesome, love it. Thank you so much. And Sophi, do you want to give us an overview of what you guys do at Spent Goods?
Sure, yeah. So at Spent Goods, we are basically kind of trying to, similar to Bruce, we're trying to transform what would normally be food waste. So in particular, we use previously used brewery grains, so spent grains, which is barley from breweries, and we make that into awesome bread and feed people rather than landfills.
Awesome. Love it. So yeah, all you guys are like working on like different areas of using leftovers, which I think is really special. And I know also, Dayna, you've done some research in food systems. You have a little bit of experience there. So I think it's very clear that obviously at Bear Market, you guys are embracing like the systemic view as well. So I think this will be a great conversation. So thanks for joining us. So let's get into the first question. So most people typically think that leftovers are not very appealing, but what you guys are doing in reimagining what leftovers mean is very important. So do you mind letting us know about how your business repurposes otherwise landfilled food?
So unlike household food waste, people might think of it as kind of like something that we're picking out of the garbage. That is not what we're doing. The waste that we use is actually not waste at all. It's a byproduct of making beer. So often breweries will have so much used barley that's actually still good, but because of space, they don't have the capacity to keep it. So they have to typically dispose of it. And roughly about 16 million kilos would get wasted. So in Ontario, I believe. So we try to reuse that, and it has a very short shelf life of 24 to 48 hours. So where we're located, we're very close to the brewery, actually in the same building. So we go over and take that spent grain, and then we freeze it until we're ready to use it. And with the benefit of the spent grains that go into our bread, barley has a much higher nutritional value. It's higher in protein and fiber. And honestly, I know I work there, but it is really good bread. I was a customer for a long time before actually working here. So the whole thing is just basically trying to feed people over landfills, or sometimes the spent grains might go to for animal feed, but most breweries don't have enough grains to actually go to food for animals or animals.
Awesome. I love it. And I totally can vouch for you that you were a huge fan before you worked there. I know that. So. Awesome. Monique, maybe do you want to give us an overview of how Bruized is repurposing food waste?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess similar to what Sophie's mentioning too, I like to go off the motto of it's not waste until you throw it out. And I think a lot of people usually throw things out before it's deemed as waste. So similar to my intro, we pretty much source things across the food chain. So mostly at the farming level and then also manufacturing. And we're still open to seeking other ingredients that we could potentially upcycle. But right now we're focusing more on just imperfect produce from local farmers that we partner with, and then also from manufacturing. So things like juice pulp that is often a byproduct of a lot of juiceries here in Toronto. We want to make use of that pulp because there's still so much nutrients, a lot of fiber, and it's just being thrown out and composted or not even composted sometimes. So I think it's such a missed opportunity there, and we wanted to take that opportunity. So we took that pulp and created our main product, which is called Pulp Crunch. It's a dehydrated granola made from a base of juice pulp, and it's sweetened naturally with imperfect bananas that we get from grocery stores. So usually those spotty bananas that no one ever buys when they're out grocery shopping because they just wouldn't last for the next few days. We take those because we don't reject reject any of the imperfect ones. And we also source imperfect second grade apples from our friends at Ray's Farms, who are a local farmer. And then we put that in our granola. And then along with that, we also create things like compote, chutney, and cookies that all incorporate imperfect fruits that wouldn't meet the market standards.
Awesome. Yeah, and speaking of grocery stores, Dayna, I know you also have creative ways of repurposing the produce that you guys are working with. Do you want to give us an overview of how that's all working?
Yeah, for sure. So as a grocery store, we actually have quite a bit of pull and weight on changing habits on both the consumer side of things as well as the producer side of things. And as a small grocery store, sometimes that's quite difficult because, we lack capacity in many areas like cold storage. And if we had more capacity, we could do even more. So there's certainly lots of opportunities for larger grocery stores to pitch in. So some of the things we do in-house are any of our surplus produce in-house, we tend to cut up and freeze and then sell as frozen vegetables. So we're not buying, wherever possible, frozen vegetables that come in bulk in a plastic case. A lot of frozen vegetables also come in like 1 kilogram plastic bags, and then bulk stores tend to just like rip open the plastic and put it all into a bulk bin. So we're trying wherever possible to use the surplus food in our system already and kind of close that loop by cutting it, freezing it, and then selling it. And there's certainly a bit of a business benefit to that as well. But I think Bear Marco is really designed with this closed loop mentality in mind, where we actually built in a closed loop cafe or a zero waste cafe to our store in order to use up any surplus produce and any other surplus food and create delicious snacks and meals, and then sell that to our customers as an added value product. So not only do we do that with frozen fruits and vegetables, but we also do similarly with apples. We make applesauce. With pears, we make pear sauce. With some of the flours or sugars that we aren't moving, which doesn't happen too often, we make baked goods, or we put into like jars so people can make their own products at home. And then the other thing we do often is bread is kind of one of our sore spots. We get bread not in plastic, which also decreases the shelf life. So there's a bit of a balancing point there. And it only really stays fresh 1 to 2 days. And so from there, what we do is we will sell day-old bread at a discount to kind of incentivize people to purchase it. It still tastes delicious. And then after that, we freeze it. And then we sell that at a discount as well, so that we're not actually throwing it out. We're not composting it. And anything that we aren't moving quick enough for bread, we will cut up and either make croutons or stuffing and sell that as well. So we're looking for business opportunities, but we're also just looking for ways for customers to like reimagine where their food comes from and how it gets to them and what else can be done with it. And like, these are things that they can do at home as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And I think like all three of you are showing how there is like a business case for it as well. Like as much as it is out of like sustainability and you have the roots in obviously preventing food waste, there are ways to either cut costs or find additional revenue potential for things that would otherwise go to landfill. So I think that's fantastic. So then since you have like all of these systems in place, I just want you guys to think about, like, did you stumble upon the idea of using waste as an input for environmental reasons, or did you intentionally do it because of the business benefit? Like, what are your motivations there? Maybe Dayna, you can go first since you went last time.
Yeah, I'm coming from an interesting place because I think I mentioned this a long time ago to you, Erin, but I did my master's thesis on food waste mitigation and also like cross-sector collaboration around reducing food waste. And so when we were designing Bear Market, both the physical landscape of what it looks like, but also like the intent behind it and the values, certainly environmentalism was like at the core and sustainability is at the core. And so we built that in knowing like, okay, we needed to close the cafe, we need to close our waste systems, but also opening a retail store is incredibly risky. It's incredibly financially difficult, especially a smaller business like ours. And so having these other opportunities to generate revenue are really important, especially for a smaller business like ours. So it was really, I think at the core, it was sustainability because that's who we are. And the business benefit was not just an added benefit, but it was also kind of like tied in there from the beginning. So it's not even so much a balance as it was like they kind of go together to build who we are as a business. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a sustainable business from a financial point of view, you don't have a business at all, and you can't do any of the environmental work or social work that you need to do to like outlive your values or live out your values rather.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And Monique, I guess we'll go in reverse order. So Monique, did you kind of found Bruized, I guess, on the environmental, for the environmental reasons, or was it also like a business motivation?
I'm pretty sure it started just as my passion for sustainability. That passion really grew in university. And then in my last year of university, I also studied food waste in one of my courses. So that kind of mixed in with my already passion for the environment. And then also that tied in with just working in a lot of kitchens as a line cook in various restaurants. I saw firsthand of what the reality was of how much was wasted in just one restaurant times all the restaurants across the city. So I was just shocked at first that no one was doing anything about it. I would be that girl that just like took home a bunch of scraps in my backpack. I could only take so many kale stems and like other things, but it was just frustrating because no one seemed to really care about where the food was coming from and how much effort it took to get there, and then for them to just throw it out. And then there's literally homeless people down the street, so it's just like a very social issue that wasn't really being addressed. And I figured since I couldn't really make a huge difference in like these larger companies, I thought I would drift off and start Bruized as my own venture to try to change this reality that we're facing and bring more awareness about this issue. So it was definitely stemmed in my passion for sustainability. And then I think just having this learning curve of running a business, because I didn't go to school for business, there was a lot to learn. And I also found that it's actually a benefit to have this mission that we reduce food waste in this way, because it distinguishes us from other companies, and also maybe inspires other companies to rethink how much waste they're producing and to improve their own systems. So yeah, definitely stem from sustainability, but I think can also tie into running a business.
Yeah, totally. And I know, Sophi, I know you're working with Dihan, who is the founder of Spent Goods, but I know you also obviously have a huge passion for environmental sustainability. Can you speak to Spent Goods, kind of their beginning, if it was the beneficial environmental or business reasons?
Yeah, it was both. Actually, when I met Dihan in 2017, we met at a zero waste conference, and he brought up the idea then when we met. And I think it was just kind of an idea at that stage, which is he doesn't actually remember I brought this up the other day. And he's like, "Oh, really? Did I say it then?" Um, but yeah, it was like, we were all amped up because we had just like been at a conference. And so we were just like riffing off each other, a bunch of us, of different ideas of how to reduce waste, because we were so passionate about sustainability in general. And that was an idea that came to him, is reusing the brewery grains, because they end up in landfill much of the time, and breweries have to actually pay to dispose of them, and you have to have a certain amount, as I mentioned earlier, to actually have someone come and pick them up for animal feed. So it actually generates a revenue for them. So it's a really great way to educate consumers and also businesses that you can make money from something that you were wasting before that you could spend. So I kind of think they kind of go together. Like Dayna had mentioned about you have to be financially sustainable to be a sustainable business. And there's this misconception, I think, of to do something good environmentally that you shouldn't be making any money. And I think that's kind of a joke, to be honest, because it's like, what? Why shouldn't you be financially compensated for finding a space where you're doing good for people and the planet? Like, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I think everyone at Spent Goods is in it for people, for the planet, and to be able to make a living.
And it's like, no matter what the intentions are, if anyone is doing like this much in preventing food waste as a result of just operating as a business, there's always going to be a business benefit. Just like if you're an individual, like if you were to reuse things that you already have, then you can save money. Like it still applies whether you're a business or a person. But on that note, actually, this is a great leeway into the third question. Your job is to prevent food waste, but do you have any kind of leftover tricks or like hacks that you have that you use at home to prevent food waste just as people? I know, Sophi, you're going to be big on this.
I think we're all going to be like tripping over each other
yeah.
what to say, because we probably have like so many ideas. But yeah, there's lots of things at home. Freezer is your best friend. That goes for our business at Spent Goods, which can be tricky. Freezer space is, at a premium. But definitely, like, if you think that something can be potentially reused, but you can't use it right away, just throw it in the freezer. And then it gives you time to look up some stuff. But some of my favorite ones that I've started doing recently are fruit leather, which is like fruit roll-ups, if anyone remembers that. Or is that still a thing? I don't know. Anyway, but it was really easy. It's like really mashed up fruit can do really well, and all you need to do is like blend it up and pour it onto a baking sheet and throw it in the oven for a couple hours. And it's a great thing for, my daughter loves it. But there's lots of things like that. Making tea in an empty honey jar, then you get everything in your tea, and you have no scrubbing work afterwards. So there's so many things like that.
I've seen your fruit leather, and like I've wanted to make it so many times. I haven't yet, but it looks so good. Like I really want to try it. Yeah. Awesome. So continuing in this order that we've made up, Monique, do you want to maybe share some of the tips that you have? If you're collecting kale stems, I'm sure you have a lot.
Yeah, I'm definitely a hoarder of like anything really, especially with food. But I think what I've come to learn, especially this year, because no one's perfect, I also sometimes find like something in the back of my fridge and I'm like, dang it, like, how did I forget about that? But what the lesson from that was, I'm challenging myself this year to clear up my fridge every week before I buy anything new. And then just getting creative with what I have as long as possible. It's almost satisfying just to have like an empty fridge and be like, oh, now I can go grocery shopping, versus like having that illusion that you need to get certain things to make a meal, when in reality you already have all the ingredients at home. So that's my main tip that I give anyone to reduce waste, is just to use what you have and get creative and improvise. I think that's just what I do all the time. And I usually go for dishes that are more versatile, that can incorporate various ingredients that I might have depending on the season or what I buy or whatever's on sale. So things like stews, stir fries, you can literally toss in anything. Don't peel anything, put all the stems in. And I also like to bake things, like a one bake, put everything on a baking sheet and then toss it in. And then you can even meal prep in that way. Just make a quick sauce and some grains, and you already have like a bowl there. So that's usually my go-to tip for reducing food waste. And then I also make sure to save any veggie scraps along the way that are usable in like a bag that I store in the freezer for an accumulated veggie broth that I can do later out down the road.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. I have done that before. I have I have a bag in my freezer right now, and it's very useful. Yeah, that's awesome. And Dayna, I know like you have a lot of tricks, obviously, that you use in the store. You've already mentioned a few, but are there any that you use at home that you think individuals can take on?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually writing notes as you were talking. I was like, oh, this reminds me of this. This reminds me of this. A lot of my tricks are also from understanding the food system and agriculture and how things are grown, and therefore how things like to be stored. There's certainly also a difference between food waste and food loss, like what is preventable food waste and what is not preventable. And so I like to consider reducing food waste in my own home about how I can prevent food waste from happening. I'm not very good at like the storing scraps in my freezer thing that a lot of low waste aficionados are like fantastic at. I'm not very good at that. But so some of the things that we do is like, for instance, if I'm taking beets home, I'll keep the stems on the beets for a little bit, but actually the stems, I think they like draw the water out of the beets and they actually make them go off quicker. So if you tear off the stems from beets, they will stay a lot longer. For things like romaine lettuce, if you get a damp cloth and wrap the romaine with the damp cloth and then store it in your fridge like that, stays a little better, a lot longer. A lot of people have these like eat first boxes in their fridges where things that are going off are put in one place, and then they're like reminded every time they open the fridge, like these are things I need to use quickly. One of my favorite tricks, and this is the one I use the most, is for bread that's gotten hard and maybe sometimes a little stale, but mostly just hard. If you like dunk it under water, dunk is not the right word. If you like, how do I describe it? If you just like get some water on it and then you either wrap it in tin foil and put it in the oven, or even if you put it in the microwave, whatever you do, if you just find a way to warm it up, it will come back as brand new. The only thing is you can't do this multiple times because it gets worse each time. There's some learning in there. And then one interesting thing that I was thinking about, because I own a zero waste store or a low waste store, cucumbers are always something that come to mind because there is a serious balance between single-use packaging and keeping food fresh. So something like cucumbers that are seen packaged in single-use plastic all the time, I mean, there is actually a business case for that. There's a sustainability case for that from a non-packaging point of view of keeping the cucumber itself fresh for up to 2 weeks, whereas unpackaged cucumbers only last like 2 to 3 days. So I just kind of wanted to throw in there as a last piece of advice that, you know, when you're thinking about sustainability, when you're thinking about food waste, it's more than just one issue, and you kind of have to look from a systemic or life cycle analysis. I mean, at Bear Market, we don't have cucumbers that are packed in plastic, but that also means that we need to be very careful about how we're storing our cucumbers, how long, like they go off much quicker. And so it's a balance about how do we not create more food waste, but also not create more plastic waste or packaging waste. And I just wanted to kind of leave it at that it's always a balance.
Mm-hmm. That's
Thanks
a great
for bringing
tidbit.
that up.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think people can get so focused on like the one thing or like plastic as being evil. But in this case, that's a good example of when it's like, okay, but how much resources did we put towards growing that cucumber that now is going to be for nothing? So I appreciate that you brought that part into
And there's
this as well.
also a larger context, like a larger conversation around, for instance, the cucumber thing. If you had more local processing or manufacturing plants or supported local farming more, then there's ways to both get unpackaged cucumbers and not have the extra waste. So it's an even larger conversation from there.
Mm-hmm, for sure. I love that. Well, unfortunately, this is all the time that we have. Obviously, we could all chat probably for hours together. But I really appreciate all three of you taking the time to chat with us and help educate people about lessons in leftovers. For the viewers, if you want to follow along with these amazing business owners, we'll be posting their social media and their websites in the description here, so you can support the work that they're doing. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode, I'll call it, of Toronto's Just Eat It Food Waste Challenge, and we will see you next week.